Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good to see you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Secretary, on September 6, 2019, in a campaign stop, the president in New Hampshire, he said, "I want you to look into my eyes. I guarantee you we're going to end fossil fuel." Do you support that?
Well, I certainly support a transition to domestic clean energy in our lifetime.
In your lifetime? Well, what's the time frame for that?
For my lifetime, only God knows the answer to that question, sir.
Okay, all right. What steps are you taking to bring this along? What steps do you want to see the demise of fossil fuels here in the United States?
We want to see the rise of domestic clean energy production. It's creating a lot of jobs alongside fossil fuel industries, which of course are still a very important part of our economy. We recognize that we're running out of time when it comes to the consequences in terms of the destruction of American property and lives from the burning of fossil fuels in transportation applications and energy. We're pursuing a policy that's going to create more domestic clean energy production because we think that'll lead to a better economy and it'll save those lives and that property.
Even though the world, there's estimates that the world is going to need additional fossil fuels for the next 50, 60, 70 years, do you think that that should be American fossil fuels, or that should be Saudi fossil fuel, or Venezuelan fossil fuel?
Our preference, again, is American-made, domestic, clean energy production, and that's
well, you keep saying clean energy. Excuse me. You keep saying clean energy. I'm talking about fossil fuel. I'm talking about natural gas. I'm talking about gasoline, et cetera. Are you in favor of additional production here in the United States, or do you want to see that limited?
Well, as you know, we've proposed, for example, that oil companies that have decided not to produce right now be faced with a choice. They can either produce on the permits that they have, or they lose access to those. And that's an example of, I think, the administration's recognition that, at least in the short term, we are working with what we have, even as we're seeing a transition through.
On a different tack, I looked at the F-150 you said, both the electric and the gas-powered one, and there's a difference of about $20,000 between one and the other. And when you look at the $20,000, if you estimate about 20 miles a gallon, it's going to take about, at today's prices, it takes about 80,000 miles in order for you to break even. I'm not even talking about charging costs. I'm just talking, no charging costs. And so, if you actually put that down to about $2.50 a gallon, which was the price of gas before the Biden administration, that you don't break even until about 160,000 miles. Is the Biden administration actively pursuing high energy prices in order to force Americans into electric vehicles?
Of course not. And I also want to emphasize that you don't have to wait that 80,000 or 160,000 miles or however many it would be to break even if you don't pay for the vehicle in cash, right? The great thing about an auto loan is you can realize or lease, is you can realize the savings in terms of less maintenance and less fuel, even while the initial car payment might be higher, right? And so you're coming out ahead right out of the gate instead of having to wait many years for a payback, unless, of course, you are buying the vehicle in cash.
No, you can. I mean, your finance costs are going to be, depends if you lease it, et cetera. But the finance, at the end of the day, you're going to be paying $20,000 more, however you cut it, at least. And actually, if you finance it, you're going to pay more because you're going to be paying interest. All right. So at the end of the day, again, you're going to take either 80 at $5 a gallon, it's 80,000 miles to break even. And then, by the way, have you figured in the 10-year lifespan of a battery that you have to change? So if you have 100,
yes, we have. I mean, the estimates that are showing that this is reaching parity and pointing toward a savings, depending on the model, do account for things like that.
But you would agree that the higher the price of gas, then the faster you reach that parity.
Of course, the more pain we are all experiencing from the high price of gas, the more benefit there is for those who can access electric vehicles. It's why we're hoping you and your colleagues might reconsider opposing the reduction of EV upfront prices with tax credits.
So you're saying the more pain we have, the more benefit we're going to get.
Of course.
I think that's what I heard you say. You said the more pain that we
really,
have.
that's what you heard me say?
That's what I heard you say.
I know you want me to say it so bad, but okay. Honestly, sir, what we're saying is that we could have no pain at all by making EVs cheaper for everybody, and we'd love to have your support on that.
EVs cheaper by subsidizing them, or
yes, that's part of it.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it cheaper. I mean,
well, actually, it does. So you have a market making
at the end. We're all paying taxes. Okay.
But it makes it cheaper because that market making investment gets you past the tipping point. Current estimates actually are that the U.S., as we cross that 5% new sales level, is starting to hit what analysts typically consider to be that tipping point. But the more we stimulate the production of the clean cars, right, the more you hit the economies of scale, that makes them cheaper to produce in the first place, which means that you won't need as many subsidies in the future. That's why we believe in this policy.
Well, that's subject to debate. Thank you very much. My time's up. I yield back.